Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm excited to have on Meghan Rhodes for the second time on the show. Welcome back to the show, Meghan.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
You recently changed your school name, I want to say, Rhodes Roots and Remedies School of Herbal Medicine. What compelled you to change the name?
Well, it's a focus really on the intensive herbalism course that we offer. My sort of herbal business journey has spanned quite a few different things, and as the teaching sort of was compelling me and coming more and more to the fore, and I realized, my diary is full up with teaching these intensive students, and actually we're a herbal medicine school, aren't we? So yeah, it's been an exciting shift.
That is exciting. That's one of my favorite things about running an herbal business is there's constant iterations, constant changes, new things excite you, and it sounds like you're incredibly excited for your apprenticeship that you've got coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Just for the listener, we're recording this in July 2024. We'll probably release this sometime in September, but it's probably been at least 6 months since I've last spoke to you. What's kind of new in your life and maybe with the school?
Well, we had the yurt put in, which I can't recall where we were at with it the last time we spoke. It was a bit of a whirlwind to make sure to welcome the students into it. Honestly, 2:30 in the afternoon, the day before the students were arriving the next morning, we were bringing the furniture into the yurt while they were still building it.
Wow.
It was a little intense. But we got there. So now everything, the wood burner is in, everything, which, can you believe, we had the wood burner running for the summer sessions at the top of July in the UK.
Wow.
So the wood burner and the throw blankets, and it was a bit ridiculous, but we had the rain going on the canvas, and it actually made this really perfect vibe for the big hands-on remedy making session. So it was kind of cool. It worked. But yeah, I had all the students come there's spring in-person sessions, there's summer ones, and then all of our Zooms that we do in between. So by the time we meet again in the summer, everybody's just like hugging each other, and I made you this tea, and I brought this thing, I've got this book to share, and it's really, really nice. Yeah. So
from where you're sitting, if you're watching the YouTube video, I'm presuming you're at your house right now recording this. Where is the yurt location to you?
It's in our, it's going to sound really fancy, but our paddock, because we live on a small holding. And I was like, oh man, can we do this session from the yurt? But it's off grid. So we don't, and it's fully insulated because of the weather. So we don't have great internet connection in there, which is nice. When we're there, we are all there. Sometimes people take pictures of something we're making, but it's not like the whole session is just everybody's really present. It's not an Instagram moment, which I really like.
Life goals, I got to get me a paddock at some point.
Yeah. Well, a paddock that's increasingly, we've got our herb garden in there where we grow all our food, and there's a bit for, our neighbor's horse to kind of nibble and theoretically control the weeds, but
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Knowing you're incredibly organized, and so I think that's hilarious that you, like, the day before you've got the yurt being built, you got the furniture coming in, but it seemed to align so perfectly. What we're going to do here with this conversation today is, last time I interviewed you, it was awesome. I was like, Meghan, I didn't get through all my questions, and right away you were like, let's schedule another interview. I was like, shoot, let's do it. And I really appreciate it about that. You're very organized. You're like, let's just do this thing. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go over some of the questions I wasn't able to get to in our first go-around. So why don't we kind of start things off a little bit light? I really liked these questions from last time, but we never got around to it. So why don't we chat about, you said somewhere on your website, maybe it was your Instagram account. It's been so long, I don't remember. You said, here are my top 5 reasons to learn herbalism. And I just really thought this was delightful. And I thought it could be a fun way to jump off and for this conversation, we can kind of go over each point and just hear you expound upon each point. How does that sound?
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Okay, so here's Megan's top 5 reasons to learn herbalism, and the first one is learning herbal medicine is empowering.
Oh man, I mean, let's start with the big one, right? It changes your life. It really does. When you learn herbal medicine, of course, you're getting to know the medicinal plants, but you've also got to get to know the human body and your human body and different human bodies, even if it's just yourself and your spouse and your kids, for example. Everybody's body is a bit different, and the dynamics and how they work are different. So when you learn all of these different pieces and you put them together, it means that you really know what's going on for yourself, for your family, and when something happens, you're able to do something about it. I mean, case in point, my little one, she's nearly 4 now. Oh, time is flying.
Sure is.
She's nearly 4, and this weekend she had a bit of a cough. And I mean, it doesn't even cross my mind. Oh, we should take her to over here it's called the GP, the general practitioner. So you're kind of generic family doctor, yeah. Oh, we've got to take her to the doctor because she's got a cough, or we should give her some of the, this, that, the other. Doesn't even cross my mind. I just go into my apothecary in my house, which sounds really fancy, but again, it's just my room where I keep my herbs, and I
bunch
happen
of
to have,
jars.
yeah, my jars and my bottles and my, oils and everything, because it's organized. It's very organized. I go in there and I'm like, okay, well, she's got a cough. What does she need? Pull it off the shelves, give her some stuff. She's had herbal medicine she's never had anything but herbal medicine. So I usually have to factor in when I give her, for example, a tincture blend, I've got to kind of decrease the amount I actually want to give her because she always wants a bonus. So she's like, can I squeeze it? And then she'll take like a massive amount. So I've got to kind of give her a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, and here's your bonus. I just went in there and got some stuff for her. Gave it to her. That's it, and I've got, then I've got my bone broth. I know we spoke about bone broth last time, so I was thinking of you this morning when I was making another batch.
That's awesome.
Got the bone broth going. We harvested some medicinal mushrooms over the weekend, so I was, making a mushroom decoction of that. So just kind of, you've got all these things going. Something happens. Okay, cool. Here you go. Somebody gets a scrape, here you go. Somebody gets a cold, here you go. Larger imbalance or illness comes through the house, here we go. This is what we do with it. And then you evolve it as you go. So I'm never having to run to somebody else. I'm never having to go, when have they got availability? I'm never having to, because I've got things in stock. I don't need to rush out to try to find something or wait for something to be delivered. And because herbal medicine is so much like cooking, you can substitute stuff as well, So you haven't got your, you're making a soup, you haven't got rosemary, chuck some thyme in. Of course, it's not exactly the same, but similar, yeah. So you can make substitutions. Nobody's telling you, this is what you have to take. This is how much you take. This is how long. This is what's wrong with you. This is what's out of balance, of course, the worst cases, in which I know a lot of people experience, and I experienced back in the day. Oh, well, there's nothing we can do for you, or there's nothing wrong with you. Go home. And you're like, well, I wouldn't be here if something wasn't wrong, if something wasn't, out of whack. And you're able to tune into those instincts. So even if somebody says, oh yeah, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, there's always that time when, when I used to work with private clients, and I would say to them, of course, we'd go through the very thorough case history, and then I'd say, okay, well, what do you think is factoring into this? And they'd say, I think I'm just really stressed out about XYZ. Or, I really like eating this thing, but it just really does me in every time I have it. Okay, you've got a gut instinct, whether or not it seems like the, official, what would go on the doctor's report or not. That's important, So to be able to pull those things together, it makes you incredibly resilient, incredibly empowered. And then ooh, do you know what? I'm at my fringes here. I think I'm going to get a second opinion. Or this thing is on my back and I can't really see it.
Right.
I'll just get somebody to look at it, and take some pictures for me or whatever it is. So it's incredibly empowering. And that, I tend to think of herbal medicine as sort of like a Pandora's box, but a good one. And once you open it, you start pulling all kinds of things out. When I teach my students herbal medicine, yes, we're learning herbal medicine. Yeah. But then we'll be chatting and somebody will say, do you know, I've been thinking a lot about water and how important the quality of our water is and how much of our bodies is made up of water. I think I'm going to do something about my water filtering. Cool. Or somebody says, do you know, I've had the coil in for birth control for ages, and actually, I don't think maybe that's not something I want to keep doing. I think I'm going to get that taken out. What herbs can we work with to support while that's prepare before and get it taken out and then support myself afterwards so I can be in balance? And that's when I just sit here going, mahaha, like that's what we're really doing here. All of those steps of empowering people to really grow sound long-term health for themselves and their families in the long term. Yeah, beyond just like, what herb can I take, as a tea if somebody's got a cold? Yeah, we do that, and we're doing all the other stuff too, so.
Just a quick break from the show to let you know about our herbal monographs page. So if you go to HerbRally.com/monographs, you're going to see all sorts of different plant monographs. And basically what a monograph is, if you don't already know, you probably do, but it's a lengthy, well-written description of what a plant is. You're going to learn about its range, its Latin name, its common names, medicinal uses, personal stories a lot of times, because we have a wide variety of herbalists talking about these plants. So if you want to learn about a specific plant, I definitely recommend you go to HerbRally.com/monographs, check them out. Some of them are even 20 pages long, some of them are 5 pages long, but they're really unique, and I highly recommend you check it out. Thanks so much, and now back to the show. That's the one comment I was going to make, is it sounds like you're empowering not only yourself, but you as a mother and a teacher, you're empowering your kiddo as well as your students to take on this lifestyle and just empower their lives as well. So kudos to you. Thank you for being out there doing the great work of being an herbalism teacher, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, all right. So number 2 is this is one of my favorite subjects, is saving money. So learning herbalism saves you money. What's up with that? It
does. Well, again, many layers to the answer.
Right.
Or my students always tease me because they'll ask a question and I go, it depends. And they're like,
They're used to that.
Yeah, they're used to that. So saving you money. Well, number 1, you don't have to go out and buy expensive products. Yeah, and I know in the UK, pharmaceuticals are part of the national health system, but in the US, where my accent is originally from, you don't. You pay out of pocket, and it is expensive, and it depends on the country you're in. So when you learn herbal medicine, your world lights up. And you see suddenly that you are literally surrounded by free medicine. I'm looking out my window now. I've got a massive hedgerow of hawthorn. That's like free heart support right there. I mean, to pigeonhole it, but obviously there's more to hawthorn. I was selectively retaining and moving around some of the copious supply of nettles that we have on our small holding, and I've got all the marks to prove it. That's free medicine. Yeah. There's comfrey growing in our backyard. That's free medicine. It's everywhere, and you can grow it. You can grow it from seed, and a pack of seeds costs you a couple of pounds max. What else do you need to make herbal medicine? Kitchen supplies, so a good set of Pyrexes, some stuff to do bain maries with. You might buy a stash of beeswax. You might buy in some vodka, or some other, neutral spirit to make your tinctures with. You might get supplies like a dehydrator if you can't dry herbs really well, in the atmosphere in your home. But it's a couple of pieces of kit beyond kitchen stuff, and then the meds are there. So you're not buying expensive pharmaceuticals, or you're not going to buy something that somebody else has made that isn't bespoke. That could be whatever the price point is. Right. And things fluctuate with supply and demand, and certain things get trendy or not, what have you. I mentioned some of our medicinal mushrooms. We've got a couple of, not loads, we want to do more. We've got a couple of logs going. Every time we get a mushroom, and we're just like, this is gold, because we just sit there and we know how much health is packed into that. I bring it in the house, I chop it up, I dehydrate it. We use it really carefully. But we inoculated a log years ago, cost us a little bit for, to inoculate it, and it's still going. And we've done that just because we don't have woodland where it's growing around us, So making it is cheap, because you can grow your own or forage. But the other cost implication is the long-term health cost. The long-term cost of things that are out of balance in your body that you can either put on mute with pharmaceuticals that are going to kind of, mute the symptoms, but, the television show is still running. Right. And getting worse, or just ignore, and then over time that stuff gets worse and worse and worse, which means you need more health support, more various practitioners to go to. If it's something physical and it's really painful, you might need to go to body workers, so all kinds of different things. And then the cost of the things you can't do anymore. You don't want to ignore something when you're younger and get to the stage when you're later in life, and the cost is you can't lift your grandchild in the air or something. That's a cost you don't even want to think about putting a price on. So there are all kinds of cost savings, and I would say, free riches. Does that make sense? There's a wealth of
I like that.
Of health wealth there. I'm gonna get tongue-tied now, to be found in just doing some cheap and easy things. Yeah. Foraging responsibly, growing some of your own, making a couple things, learning how to use it and use it effectively. It's cheap. They say over here, cheap as chips.
Over there in England, that's what you say?
Yes, because there's all the fish and chips culture in the UK, so there's this cheap as chips expression.
I like it. I was interviewing herbalist Brandon Ruiz, and he was talking about if you're on food stamps or have EBT or SNAP or whatever you want to call it, and you can't afford alcohol to make a tincture, you could even just use your food stamps to purchase apple cider vinegar to make herbal infused ACV. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you can make an infused vinegar. You can make an oxymel. The shelf life varies, but not everybody, not everybody's body agrees with alcohol anyway. I mean, I work with tinctures and I give them to my family because they're happy with them.
Right.
I only really take them if I really want an intense hit really quickly of something. Yeah. Because I've always had a very low, not that they're drinky drinks, but I've always had a very low tolerance for alcohol. So if I have a medicinal amount of a tincture, it goes straight to my legs like I've had a G&T. Wow. And I've got stuff to do. So right. So you've got options. Yes.
Love that. Mm-hmm. All right. So third bullet point is you create a legacy.
Oh yeah. Especially when you whether you've got kids yourself or grandkids, a lot of my students, have grandchildren, and they'll come back to another session and they'll say, oh, I was babysitting my grandkids. We were making, herbal remedies together. And your children learn from your example. Your grandchildren learn from your example. When my daughter fell through a patch of nettles recently, which, like I said, half the field is nettles, really.
Wow.
So she stumbled through some nettles. And the first time it happened, we went straight into the herb garden to the comfrey patch, and I showed her where it was. And I didn't do loads of explanation, to a 3.5-year-old in the moment of nettle stings. But I grabbed some fresh leaves and I smushed it up, and it was on her hand. And so I said, okay, squeeze it in your hand. So how much can you squeeze it? Squeeze, squeeze. You see all the juice? Can you make more juice? Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Yeah. And it worked, of course, because comfrey's amazing, as are nettles. And then the next time she got some nettle stings, I wasn't even, obviously I generally knew where she was. I know where my child is, but I wasn't watching her. I was shoveling mulch or something for the herb garden. She went straight to the comfrey bed, got a leaf, and the next thing I know, I look over and she's like hiking up her trouser legs and like smushing comfrey all over her knee because she got some nettle stings again. And she just knows. I don't have to tell her now. She knows. Even if she doesn't know the plant yet for something a bit more advanced than a nettle sting, she'll say, oh, Mummy, I bit my tongue and it really hurts. Can I have some HERBies, we call it. Can I have some HERBies, please? This is the medicine that she knows is medicine. That's it. And we say to her, when she'll see or hear things about other children going to the doctor, getting medicine, stuff like that, we say, different families do different things, and not everybody knows their bodies really well and knows how to help their bodies themselves. So sometimes they need to get somebody else's help. But in our family, we know how to listen to our bodies, and we know what herbs to use. So that's what we do. And she's 3.5 and she's very proud of that, which I'm like, yes, parenting win. Like, I may have lost that tantrum earlier today, but now she wants herbs, so it's all good. So that legacy is something that she will pass down to her children. And in a couple of generations, it starts with one ripple. Yeah. In a few generations, even if we're not still around, suddenly your family has become a family of X number of generations herbalists. And I think particularly in the world we live in, and because my daughter is so young, I think a lot about what's the world going to be like in 30 years when she's an adult. And so, a lot of times I don't really want to think about it. And, we just don't know in a lot of ways. The thing, what we are doing right now, it didn't exist when we were kids.
Right.
It was a sort of feature on an imaginative feature of the future on a ride at Epcot at Disney, because I grew up in Florida, we went quite frequently. And I was like, wow, look at this child talking to this child across the world, and video and sound, and it's translating it. The future, well, the future's been around for a while now. So what's her future going to look like, and what skills will she need beyond reading, writing, arithmetic? I think the skills she'll need are understanding how her body works, being able to make and use her own medicine. Alongside, I think that's just as important as knowing how to grow and cook food, and sort of, basic carpentry type, repair skills and, home repair skills like sewing. I think these are the skills our kids are going to need in whatever they're going to be living in. Yeah. So, whatever age they are, even if it's not your kids, if it's your grandkids, you teach your grandkids, you bet your kids are going to be like, what was the thing you taught them today when you were watching them? And then you get to backtrack a bit and fill in the gaps, so absolute massive opportunity to create a legacy. And be that first ripple or that turning point in your family's history, that means that your family generations down the line is really, as we mentioned before, empowered and in control of themselves. They've got autonomy. They're not stuck listening to or answering to any other system that's got its own agenda.
There's the empowering again. I love that. What a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
And it's really neat to think about, your daughter in 20 or 30 years, like going back and being like, I wonder what mom was like when she was younger. And then she could watch this interview. And that's just wild to think about. We're kind of creating this digital legacy of some of our thoughts and opinions of the time. So learning herbalism reconnects you to your body and nature.
Yes. So I touched on this already a bit, but when you're working with herbal medicine, because there's nobody else saying to you, this is what is happening in your body, you have to pay attention. And you also have the opportunity to pay attention earlier on. So you can get really in tune with that first little, do you know what? My throat feels a bit funny, or my mouth tastes a bit off, or my body feels a bit heavy, or I'm tired, but not like I had a bad sleep tired. All of those really early signs, and you can act then. And it's a lot easier to act then than it is when you've got a full-blown whatever it is, or if you've got a really developed chronic condition. So you've got to listen to your body. Yes, you can do the kind of sort of, white coat approach to herbalism of, the green pill, right? Oh, well, you have this, so we'll have that for it instead of this medication. But you've got so much more scope in herbal medicine to know your body better, to pair the herbs with more nuance. Even if there's nothing, quote unquote, going on for you at the moment, you just go, I'm seeing mugwort everywhere. This is me at the moment. I'm looking around at the hedgerows, and I'm seeing two things everywhere where we are. I'm seeing a lot more meadowsweet this year, and in places that it doesn't usually pop up, and mugwort. And I always tell my students, pay attention to nature, because nature is giving us what we need before we know we need it. There was a few years ago, there was feverfew everywhere, which is classic for migraines, really bad headaches, visual disturbance, stuff like that. And that year, people who were even not headachy people, classically, everybody was getting headaches. People who had never had a migraine in their life were having migraines. And I was like, wash the hedgerows. So this year we've got meadowsweet, which of course does more than just one thing, but the classic thing it's known well for is pain relief. And we've got mugwort, which is really classic for supporting women's health. So I'm just looking at everything going, might want to do a bit of extra harvesting of that. Something's coming, what's that expression? You feel it in your waters, but you see it in hedgerows. So you get a sense of, I think I just want to work with something right now. You might not actively know why. It might be tangible signal from your body. It might be a subconscious signal from your body. But the more you tune in, the more you're aware of that. You get to know what your body is saying. And like I said, you pay attention to what nature is saying. Ooh, it's, in 2020, Ellie campaign was rampant. And elderberry, it was a great year for elderberry. Which is a good thing. I wonder why, which is a good thing, because at least in the UK, elderberry got rationed to professional herbalists, from the herbal suppliers, because everybody was, stockpiling it the way that people were stockpiling loo roll. Herbalists were like, elderberry, screw the loo roll, I'll use a leaf of some sort, Right. So pay attention, listen to your body, listen to nature, because our bodies are still nature. even though we often think of ourselves as separate, and it's all still in communication. It's the factor is whether or not you're listening and you can understand the messages like another language and how to interpret them and what to do about it or not.
All right. Last but not least, it's fun. Herbalism
It's
is fun.
Does what it says on the tin. It's fun. Yeah. I mean, it's fun to, I mean, different people have different definitions of fun. Some people might go, oh my God, gardening. Oh, not fun. But, there are all different aspects to it that someone will find something fun in, whether it's gardening or foraging or making your own remedies or coming up with a formulation. Some people, this is not my personal definition of fun, some people think it's really fun to learn about all the different constituents of the plant and read extensive, like, peer-reviewed journal, articles that have been written. Not my top way to do herbalism, but, to each their own. And when you do something like go on a course, you're doing it with other people. You meet like-minded people, and that's fun. You make, literally, you make new friends, and then you're exchanging stuff. People who are busting into my yurt with, I had a student say, oh, we were having this one session, and we were starting to pair herbs and people and what we might want to do in scenarios, and you gave this analogy, because I can't help it, of almost like making a tarot or an oracle card spread. You've got all your different kind of cards out of, you've got, okay, right now we're too warm and we're dry and what's happening with the Ayurvedic doshas. And then you might want to pull a card and then, for a particular herb. And she said, I really liked that analogy. So I've made a card deck and I printed one for everybody and here it is. And we were all like, this is amazing. It is fun. Yeah. So there are lots of ways to find fun in it. It's not just a practice or a form of medicine. It can also be a hobby. It can be a community. It can be a way of connecting with other people. So yeah, find your fun, because there are loads of ways to have fun with it.
Yeah, I'll second that as far as taking an herbalism apprenticeship. I still have some of my best friends to this day that I met through the
Same.
Columbine School of Botanical Studies. So, and your students are doing the same thing, building those relationships that'll last likely a lifetime. So, herbalism is fun. That's Meghan Rhodes' top 5 reasons to learn herbalism. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing all that. I wanted to say, since meeting you, you seem like such a natural teacher, and I know you have like a tech background, so that transition to herbalism might not seem super obvious to a lot, but you're just so passionate about it. Curious, have you always been maybe, say, like a natural born teacher? Is it innate in you? Do you think it could be developed? Just kind of curious your thoughts on teaching herbalism and why you're so adept at it.
Oh, thank you. I love it. And when I was growing up, I had no concept of herbalism, and I never, when you ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And someone will say, a teacher. I never thought of that. I either wanted to be a Broadway star or a lawyer. And I did, sort of competitive dance for many years, things like that. So I think what comes through in my teaching is possibly a bit of that kind of love of the theater sort of element, that love of performance.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just me at the end of the day, but I've had my students say, I was watching one of our Zoom sessions on catch up with my headphones in, and my husband came in and was like, I thought you were studying. Why are you laughing? What is so funny? And they're like, well, it's just funny. However she's saying it, it's just funny. And I'm like, okay. So I think if you've got an ability to explain things in a way that's interesting for people and that makes sense, and to organize your thoughts. I think that really helps in teaching. I always have a sense of what I'm going to convey for that day, but there are always analogies that crop up in the moment. There are always stories, there are always anecdotes, which helps people remember things better and longer, and it makes it more fun. You know, I mean, how many of us have done the whole like death by PowerPoint experience? Even if I'm, presenting, for a sort of herbal organization, I will never make a PowerPoint.
Oh,
Because
really?
I think it's not fair on people. I mean, yes, some people learn better by reading. So there will be some kind of way to connect to the different methods of learning. And I had some exposure to that because my mom was a primary school teacher. So I grew up in her classroom, watching her teach in different ways. So I guess I banked that unconsciously. But I think it's about bringing it to life for people, making it interesting, finding ways that they connect. And that tech background you mentioned, I totally fell into that previous career, and tech has never been something that I personally really loved or had a specific interest in. And for quite a bit of my tech career, I was helping to sell marketing tech to big companies. And my specific role on the sales team was sort of like the technical consultant. But because I'm not instinctively a techie person, I always aimed to speak like a human to other humans instead of throwing out a bunch of jargon. And in herbal medicine, yes, we've got what you could consider a lot of jargon. There is a lot of terminology. Yeah, there's vocab to learn. Yeah. But it's more important to know the meaning and the dynamics behind that vocab term. And then when you look something up, you see the term, you know what it means. It's faster, it's shorthand. But for me, teaching herbal medicine, I want to do it in a way that communicates something that's real and practical to people, rather than just throwing a bunch of terminology at them. That's what I did in my tech career. And that's what I do now. It's not supposed to be a lofty thing that's locked away in an ivory tower that people can't access. Herbal medicine has always been people's medicine. And from as far back as that was happening, before medicine and health got what's the word I want to use that's maybe what's the word I want to use? It's maybe not quite as inflammatory as it could be. Before health and knowledge of health was sort of rounded up and made to be something that only specific people had access to, which then creates a hierarchy of power. There we go. When we're in the yurt, I use the inflammatory words. But people had access to this. So people weren't saying all these really fancy things and all this medical terminology and whatnot. They were just saying, oh, here, have some of this. It'll make you feel better. Or, oh, I can see that there's a lot of, you've got a lot of excess wind right now, however you want to, and whether it's literal or sort of energetic, oh, there's a lot of heat. Let's cool you down. Yeah. Not talking about, which enzyme is firing at this exact moment or whatever. Some people really like that stuff. Cool. Go for it. You can get there. It exists. Do it. But I think a lot of people just want to be healthy and want to do that naturally and want to be able to do it for themselves. Yeah. So why not make it accessible? And if it's funny on top of that, brilliant, great, bonus.
Well, you did have a bit of an advantage, I'd say, with your mother being a primary school teacher.
She was epic. She used to,
Was she
I
good?
remember, she was the best. She used to come and collect her students from everybody would sit in the cafeteria in the morning by class group, and she would go and collect them, and whatever unit she was doing, so if they were studying Japan that week, and my grandfather worked in the shipping industry, so he traveled all over the world and had brought back all kinds of, souvenirs for her. So my mum would go into the cafeteria to collect her class for Japan week, dressed as a geisha.
Wow.
Like full on,
Wow.
she'd put the, she'd dress up, or she would, when they did, she would use stories a lot as well. So I'd never forget, she would teach multiplication by drawing these massive barrels on the chalkboard, and she'd put on this like really funky kind of deep South accent, and she would tell this story about, I don't really understand how the multiplication worked in the story anymore. I just remember the character. The kids learned the multiplication. I wasn't in her class. Is this story about like having these barrels of pickles, and she'd have these drawn on the board, but she'd reach down into the barrel of pickles and she'd pull them out, and then she'd have these kind of, thick laminated pickle clip art things that she'd stick to the board. So I had, I guess, this example of this very kind of theatrical way of teaching that's fun, and it sticks. When we talk about the mucilaginous taste, when I'm teaching, I, rightly or wrongly, as they're drinking their marshmallow root tea, I say, oh, do you feel how thick that is? Yeah, and it's really slimy, isn't it? Yeah, okay. It's kind of like a slug, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so mucilaginous, now you've got lots of slugs going down your throat. And everybody goes, what? Gross, but it illustrates the point. And everybody understands what mucilaginous is and what it does in the body, because that slug analogy gets quite, expanded upon.
Sure.
And then you've got it. So I think if you want to teach, find your style, understand what you want to communicate, and I think do it in a way that you would want to receive that information. I teach in a way that would make sense for me to learn. Throw in all the bits that are interesting for you. Some bits, you'll have to cover anyway, depending on what it is. So find a way to make it interesting for you, because if it's interesting for you, it'll be interesting for your students.
That is great advice. Kind of reminds me of like, write the book you'd want to read or create the podcast you'd want to listen to.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like that. Just one more question related to that. Have you ever had like an ounce of nervousness, or are you just kind of, I'm just going to do this thing and I have no fear? You really have to think about that one.
I had to think about it because my instinct is to say no fear, but I just want to check if that's accurate. I mean, the first time when you've got new students coming, there's that excitement, those butterflies, but I've always been the kind who was like, yes, please, cast me in the leading role and I will head out on the stage. No fear, So cool. I've got a bit of that You're
just wired that way.
I'm just wired that way. I can't help it,
And it's in your genes too. Your mom was a teacher, and
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you for sharing all that.
Sure.
You sound like such a fun teacher, and
thank you.
Why don't you tell the HerbRally audience about your upcoming Awaken Herbal Wisdom mentorship program, apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it. This is coming up in 2025. Tell us about the class, and also, is it online, in person, etc.? Yeah, just tell us all about it, Megan.
Cool. Okay, so it's a course that's a hybrid. So we blend in-person meeting with online.
Oh, cool.
So we start in person, we connect as a group in person. It's a max of 10 people per cohort, so it's really intimate. It's kind of like going to a circle to learn. Then we have 12 weeks of live online Zoom sessions twice a week. So it's an hour each session. So it's kind of a, especially if you're working, it's like, I'll just take my lunch break at this time, manager, thank you. But, we always record stuff because life happens and you can't always make everything. Then we meet in person again in the summer. We've got a summer break, which we're on now, which is how we're talking, because usually I'm back to back with teaching. Then we come back together in person in the autumn. We do the Zoom sessions again, winter in person, and then we have a closing ceremony because I think it's really important. It's a big deal. You spend a lot of time and effort and energy learning something, growing yourself. We lack a lot of markings of rites of passage, I think, in our society at the moment. So I think I see that coming back, which is great. So we definitely mark it. And there are up to 3 years, although if my current students have their ways, they were like, I'm sure you said 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's amazing. Okay, yes. Also, there's only so much time in a day. But they'll find a way to make it happen, which I'm thrilled about.
That's cool.
But it's quite an intensive course. Everything we do is together. So anything you want to go off and read more or experiment or try whatever on your own is totally up to you. But it's not a sort of classic academic course where you've got, okay, now here's your reading that you have to do before the next session, and now we've got a quiz, and now you have to write a paper. Those things I think are necessary when you're doing something like a clinical qualification, because various boxes have to be checked, for various people and accreditation things and whatnot.
Sure.
But for us, it's all about you and your journey. So we do everything together, including on the Zooms. We work through each herbal taste, we work through together. The plants we get to know together. So there's no outside work to do, which I think is a relief for a lot of people, because they're going, okay, but how much time is this really going to take? Because I want to do it. But we go really deep as we go. So you get that depth without having to do loads of other stuff outside of it. And everything is through the senses. So we work through taste, which we've talked about before. We talk about the energetics. So it's all the stuff you can feel and see in your body. We do blend the Ayurvedic energetics in, but we don't even use a lot of the Sanskrit terminology. We say Vata, Pitta, Kapha for the constitutions because it's helpful. It's helpful shorthand. We talk about Agni, your digestive fire and the other fires in the body, and Ama, or toxins. We introduce other terms, but we tend to still just use the sort of translations and the practical sense of it, because the whole point of the course is that herbalism becomes your daily lived reality. That it's part of your life. It's how you do things, and you've got the confidence to do it, so that you're not like, okay, I've learned all this stuff in my head, and then your child gets sick and you're going, and you get that kind of deer in the headlights. What do I do? Herbalism's stuck in your head. It's not in your hands.
Right.
So we get it in your head, in your heart, and in your hands, so that you're just living it, and then things shift. And you get to go on this journey throughout, not only learning herbalism, but all the other stuff that crops up, whatever it is. I'm going to change my water filtration system. I think I'm going to start making my own, toiletries or cleaning supply, whatever it is. Oh, I think maybe I'm going to, change the shoes I wear. It's limitless, what you can do.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a slight ramble, but that's what we're up to over here in my little yurt in the middle of the northern English countryside. So if you're on my side of the pond and that sounds interesting, we do enrollment to our waiting list first from mid-September. For our groups of first year students for to start in the coming spring.
Okay.
And then enrollment runs until the end of November each year. So that autumn time is when to get in for the coming spring. If you're anywhere on this side of the pond, we're a much smaller country than the States, so it's easier to get to if you're not exactly right nearby.
Right.
And then we've got a really lovely community growing around that course. So this year will be our first annual student and alumni winter gathering in February. We're going to get together in the yurt. I'm going to get loads of fairy lights up. We're going to eat loads of food. We're going to play Herbal pub quiz games because, I mean, where else can you do that?
Right.
And we are going to start a new tradition of the current and students who have finished making something that the incoming first year students will get when they come to their first session. So really creating this tapestry of people, because if anything, herbalism is real. It's not theoretical. And so I want that herbal community to be real for people as well. So that's what we're up to. If you're nearby and you're into it, come join us. We have fun.
So let's say the website again, rhodesrootsandremedies.co.uk, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's Rhodes, RHODES.
Yes.
So it sounds like you're looking for students primarily in the UK.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
because you got to go to those in-person events and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think flying from, I mean, anybody's welcome from anywhere. Flying from the States might be a bit of a commitment. But, from sort of, broader Scandinavia, Europe, it might be a bit more accessible. We've got all kinds of cool stuff, in the local area to explore if you want to kind of make a little trip of it. So very welcome.
I just wanted to highlight something you said. I think I'm going to get this right. I memorized it. I wanted to write it down, but I didn't. You said something like, I want herbalism to become a part of their daily lived reality. I thought that was so cool. Did you just make that up right there on the spot?
No.
Okay.
That's
a good one.
I talk about that with my students. This isn't, you can learn anything for a bit of fun, and we've talked about herbalism as fun, but coming to the courses I teach and coming to the community that we have growing is really, you don't quite know where it's going to take you, but you want to do it. You want to make that difference. You want this to stamp on your life. I'm not really interested in, chucking somebody a tidbit in passing. That's not my MO. I'm doing those, throwing those little pebbles in the pond, and I want those ripples to happen. So, if you want to be rippled,
you got away with words,
and create your own ripples. Come join us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you got time for one more, Megan?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. I know we wanted to cover this. So I've heard you speak about learning herbalism in a solo setting versus learning in a group. Just kind of curious why you could explain why learning in a group is beneficial.
Yeah, different people have different learning styles. Yeah. Some people need to write. Some people need to hear it. Some people need to see it. Some people do better on their own. Some people do better in a group. When I remember in school, we were always encouraged, like, form a study group. And I was always that one going, no. Yeah. I need to do this by myself. I need to organize my notes. If I don't write it and I haven't had it done myself, then I'm not learning it, which is of course valid. But with herbal medicine, you can do all of those things, but there's a certain alchemy, there's a certain chemistry that comes through when you do it in a group, because somebody else will ask a question that you didn't realize you had, or come from a perspective that is new to you. Someone will say something and you'll go, or somebody else will connect some dots and you'll go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Or, oh, now I really want to think about that. So when you've got that, you've got these extra sparks. It's not just that spark going off in you, which is brilliant. Your spark is sparking off of everybody else's. And you've also got a community. You've got other people. I think sometimes learning herbal medicine and shifting the way we live our lives and we think about our lives and what's going on in the world can feel quite lonely and isolating and a bit like a bit of a massive gray cloud sometimes. And I think when you're doing it in a group, when you're doing it with other people, you've got that really tangible reminder of you're not alone in this. You're not the only one who's learning these things, who's doing it for the first time and having a learning experience, aka, oh, I thought I'd give somebody this herb, and you go, yeah, we could find a better pairing there, a more effective pairing there. You're not alone in the process. When we had our summer gathering, one of our first year cohorts had this incredible conversation over lunch. And it was just one of those, it wasn't even specifically about herbs. We were just kind of talking about the world and observations. And then one person in the group said, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this particular aspect of history that isn't necessarily taught, in our, primary school history books. So she was bringing in things that I didn't know. Not that I know everything, because I don't. We're always learning. And I'm going, oh, can you share the link to that in the WhatsApp group? So we get all of these bits from sharing. Your journey is so much richer, I think, when you do it in a group than when you do it by yourself. Even if you can't go to something in person, I think you don't have to do this alone. And I think we've learned many lessons over recent years, but I think one of the lessons that we've learned is it's very important to stick together and to make sure that your real life reflects the fact that we are not alone. Because when you feel alone, when you feel isolated, your individual strength is weakened. But when we are connected, we are all stronger. And I think that applies to life in general, just as much as learning herbal medicine.
It's brilliant, Meghan. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Learn more about the Awaken Herbal Wisdom Apprenticeship coming up. Pre-registration's pre-enrollment September. And you can start registering in October. We'll have links and all that in the podcast show notes, YouTube description, etc. Still more questions to go over at some point, Meghan, so we'll have to do a round 3 at some point.
Let's do a round 3.
There you
Let's
go.
do it.
Very good. Well, I did want to quickly plug, you have this really cool Spotify playlist where you gather all of your interviews that you've done on various health shows, herbalism podcasts, etc. I just thought that was really neat. I will be sure to leave a link to that in the podcast show notes as well if you want to learn more about Meghan. And definitely if you want to learn more about Meghan's backstory, you can check out our previous episode on the Herbalist Hour. That was a lot of fun as well, where we also go over a lot of things related to herbalism and taste. So that's always a good topic. But this has been great. Any closing thoughts that you want to impart upon the audience before we wrap up and get out of here?
I think just if herbal medicine is something you're interested in learning, And if you are interested in finding out just how many different ways you can shift your life to make it what you want it to be and to feel the way you want it to feel, go for it. You know, if you're like many of you listening will not be in the UK, find a herbalism course near you or online, wherever it is, something that just sparks for you, that makes you feel like champagne inside, and go for it. Because, you know, your journey doesn't start unless you put one foot in front of the other. You know, saving infographics and whatnot is not going to get you there. You got to put one foot. You got to take that first step. So do it, because you'll love it.
So many quotables in this episode. I like that one as well. This has been awesome. Very good. Well, thanks y'all for tuning into the Herbalist Hour. Big thanks to Amanda for editing. Megan, thank you once again for joining us for a second time on the Herbalist Hour, and we'll see you next time. All right?
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.